Hey, everybody, welcome into the webinar. We'll get started in just a few minutes. We're going to give people just a moment to get settled in. Welcome in, everybody. We'll get started here in just one moment. Just going to give folks one more second to get settled in, and then we'll get started. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Drew Stennett. I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at Right Side Up. Thank you so much for joining us today for our virtual event, How to Get Creative, an Intro to Ad Inventory for Performance Marketing. If you aren't familiar with Right Side Up, we're a marketplace of growth marketing specialists who have helped more than 400 VC-backed tech companies hit their goals. We cover virtually all paid channels, SEO, CRO, email marketing, analytics, and much more. Today, we'll be hearing from Alexander Parker, the creative lead here at RSU. Alexander has over a decade of experience, 16 years actually, in establishing creative strategies for some of the world's leading brands. In his presentation, Alexander will be breaking down the process of developing an effective ad inventory from ad creation to data-informed decision-making and everything in between. Before I turn it over to Alexander, I have just a couple of housekeeping items to quickly mention. First, we love questions. Please feel free to submit yours throughout the session using Zoom's Q&A functionality at the bottom of your screen. We'll plan to address as many of your questions as we can in the last 20 minutes or so of our time together. Second, we are recording this webinar. You'll receive an email in the next few days with both the recording and the slide deck, as well as a link to a brief survey about your experience with us today. We'd really appreciate if you just take a moment to fill that out. We value your feedback and use it to inform future virtual events and webinars. Thank you so much. That's it for me, Alexander. I'm passing the mic to you.
Cool, thank you, Drew. So as Drew mentioned, my name's Alexander, and I've been in advertising and doing advertising design for about 16 years. I started with a t-shirt company at 15 and then got my first job in marketing at 16, went to school for art direction, and I've been working with everyone from small brands and individuals through multi-billion-dollar companies to help evolve their brands and to create ads for their online channels. So let's jump on into this. We're going to go through a few quick sections today. We're going to talk about who we are as a department. We're going to talk about creating an ad inventory and why that's important for your performance marketing channels. Then we're also going to talk about what to do with your ad inventory. And then finally, we'll recap, have a conclusion, and then there will be time for Q&A. So we are Right Side Up Studios, and we specialize in helping clients with their performance creative for paid social and digital channels. That typically means that we connect them with the creative director that they work with who finds design talent to work on the projects, and that talent then specializes on the specific needs of each project. We can also match creative talent directly to clients as needed for anything that's outside of that performance creative realm. But performance creative is definitely our sweet spot. We tend to focus on static ad creative first because that's the easiest and quickest to test, but we can also do video ads, motion graphics, GIF style video animations, video productions, and video editing, and more. I'll go into more depth on the rest of these bullets. I won't bore you with each of them, but mostly we work best when we're working with a performance marketer, which can be contracted, but through Right Side Up, or if they're on staff, that works as well. And we work best with clients who have consistent creative needs that we can help power on a regular basis. So here's a few of our clients. We've worked with everyone from new startups through big companies. DoorDash for Merchants is a great client we've had for a long time. So is Modern Fertility. Reddit is a more recent client who we've helped with video, and the list goes on. Last year was our first year being a department within Right Side Up, and we delivered over 10,000 deliverables. A lot of those were statics, like you see here. And with those clients, we saw that they were able to defeat creative fatigue. They were able to achieve new top performing ads on their digital channels. They were also able to establish value props that resonated with their audiences and maximized creative performance across multiple channels, and overall streamlined their creative processes. As I mentioned, we tend to start with static ads because they're the easiest to test quickly and efficiently, and usually cheapest to make. Once we learn what's working with static ads and what sort of copy really works with audiences, then we suggest moving on to rich media types like video or other ad types. So when we're creating ads for clients, we batch our efforts. We try to find a sweet spot in economics of scale, both for the creators so that we're not wasting their time with too little up and ask, and for matching the needs of the performance marketers. And we do that by creating ads in what I call trays. And it's usually a 3x3 grid like this. This is for static ads. We do square ads because that covers the most channels. But the reason that we do this and we overproduce on a regular basis, typically a tray per week per brand or per brand product, is that it reduces feedback loops. It's easy to just eliminate an ad from the tray if it's not on brand or if there's going to be too many edits. It also reduces creative lead time. If you have ads that are already created, ready to go, then you don't have to go through the whole process to make them again if you want more ads that are in a similar style or go after the same thought props. And this also gives a better shotgun approach where you can use the same val prop or similar val props and apply different visual approaches for it all at once, so that you can test different things out quickly rather than just kind of guessing as you're going. And this keeps clients and creators happy because it reduces all that time just on wasted energy. On the right here, you see an example for our client Cardless, and we made this tray for them that was focusing on 3 val props that you see at the top. And then they have a lot of different cards for different teams. They basically white label credit cards and then set up those cards for different sports teams. So we took this tray and then applied it to other teams just by changing colors, changing imagery, swapping out the cards. And that allowed us to keep testing consistent across the different teams while also giving us a variety of visual approaches to test while doing so. I'm going to go through a few more examples just to show you the work that we've done. This is a great example of a B2B client known as Boulevard. And an interesting thing happened here. In one tray, we found 2 really clear winners for them. The first one at the top here, it drove 55% of their leads for the quarter and 54% of qualified leads. And then from the same tray, you'll see A3 in the grid was the second best ad of Q2. It drove 19% of their leads and 23% of qualified leads. So together, those 2 ads was basically 3/4 of their qualified leads for the entire quarter. And we got a lot of great learning out of just this one tray, that UI imagery and pain points are an effective combination, that if you're using a checklist, less cluttered visual is more effective for this client and this audience, and that applying an eyebrow, which is a small headline above the main headline that says salon and spa owners, does resonate as a call out for this brand. And that's really important, especially in B2B. If to get the right people, it's important to filter out the wrong people and hook in the right people. And most of the time that means just being really clear with who you're talking to. So for this client, it was salon and spa owners, just say it right away. And then if someone isn't a salon owner, spa owner, they'll ignore the ad and you'll get better qualified leads because of it. Another example, this doesn't always happen, but another example of a tray where we found multiple winners was for Ramp. We had already figured out from previous testing that the incentive of an $100 gift card for this client, for this corporate card, was really effective on their LinkedIn ads. So we found that these two ads that I pulled out on the side were the most effective. And so after we discovered that, we then spent time creating a tray based on each of those ads individually that we're now currently testing and seeing if we can continue to get even more performance going forward. As I mentioned, DoorDash is a great client of ours. We do static for them, like you see in the middle. We also do video ads in different sizes and GIF style ads, like that really delicious looking spinning donut. The funny thing about DoorDash, or really interesting thing to me, is that for most of the time that we've been working with them, the most effective ads are really plain. They're just red text on a white background or white text on a red background. We still test other visual approaches like with images or illustrations, but in most cases, the top performing ads are just huge text. And that's effective because we've zeroed in on the bell props and the copy that works for that audience. And we see this across other clients too, especially in the B2B space, but pretty much across all clients. Almost always 1 out of the top 5 top performing ads are really big headlines. And we were able to discover that not long before Facebook actually got rid of the text rule on their ads. So these are for Facebook, but that works on LinkedIn as well, where just simple ads seem to be king. Here's a direct to consumer example that we did for Smaldor. So they were announcing some new locations, so we did some ads for that, as well as some basic val props that they've been testing to see if going with the text only route works, or with imagery or with lifestyle works as well. For this direct-to-consumer client, Modern Fertility, we've done a lot of video. They came to us with UGC content. We can also shoot UGC if needed, but they had some ready to go. They also had some campaigns with professional athletes that we helped them work on. And what we found for them is that showing demos of usually using the actual product, it's a hormone testing product, is really effective, especially the videos where the people prick their finger and drop blood onto the card. We've also seen, like you saw that last one scrolling, that ads with a lot of text and checklist style, but treated pretty simply, are very effective and do well as well. So who's making all these ads? Well, we find focus experts and contractors who hail from all over the company, and they're recruited based on their portfolios, their industry experience, and their specialized skill sets. So when I'm matching someone with a client like DoorDash, I'm looking to see if they have previous experience working with food brands and if their style matches what I think would be a good way to elevate the brand of that client. You might be thinking, well, why shouldn't you just use your in-house design team to make ads like these? And you can, that's totally fine. And you can use these processes that I'll teach you today. But in-house designers are often overworked. We find that a lot of the clients we work with only have one or very few designers. They also might not specialize in performance marketing channels. They might not be able to move quickly enough to keep up with the evolving algorithm and with your testing needs and with the iterations needed to succeed. To get everything created, we use a lot of web-based programs. We are super into Figma. Figma is similar to Canva if you've used that, but a little bit more beefed up. I've been an early adopter and I am a huge fan of it. It allows for us to work collaboratively. It allows for the clients or the performance marketers to comment on the ads and leave feedback so that we can get stuff changed. It allows us to share the working files without having to download anything or share anything in that way. And it just keeps things really efficient. We work first on copy, and once we have that nailed down, we set it up in Figma, and then the designer can just stay in their lane, get their work done. I can check on it without bugging them, and things are easy to go. For project management, we use Airtable. It's similar to a database like an Excel sheet, but a lot more verbose and a lot smarter. It has automations that hook up to Slack, so we can let the creators know when stuff is ready to be worked on. We can let the clients know when feedback is ready just by sending an automatic Slack message, by updating the status of a project. And then we can also let the performance marketers know when ads are through the approval process and ready for upload through the same idea. It also allows for creating dashboards, which is really helpful. So we can create beautiful dashboards like that shown there that allow for the client to have an easier time looking through their list of what projects are being worked on. And then finally, this is a new program called Scenery, and we're still trying that out, but I highly suggest you try it out too. Here's a link here for getting into their beta through an invite code that they gave us. It's a lot like Figma. Figma is actually invested in them. It allows for collaboration on video projects and video editing. It can do some light editing or light animation as well. And it keeps everything web-based so that your video processes aren't created in the dark as they often are for other clients. As far as timing and how we get stuff done efficiently, it's easiest to break this out into phases, and each phase is usually 2 to 3 business days. I like to tell clients that a tray of statics, for example, takes 1 to 2 weeks, but that really depends on what sort of review process they have in place. If the ads are going to go through legal review, if my team is responsible for shepherding the ads through those reviews, etc. But this is a really good kind of basic process that most of our ad creative goes through when we're creating it. And the first and most important thing is strategy. So we'll look at the brief that the client opens with us. The copywriter will work with the performance marketer and the creative director to identify the strategy and positioning and make sure that they understand the audience. Once they have the copy ready, then it will be taken into design where we place it in Figma. The designer works on it. The client can comment on this process anytime, and then we'll get into design review and they'll give us any final feedback. We make edits. And then we have a kill it policy. So if an ad requires too many edits for us to salvage it, rather than overcook it, we just nix that ad. We have other ads in the tray that we can use instead. And that keeps us from falling into this infinite feedback loop that a lot of creative processes are kind of guilty of falling into, and it can just waste everyone's time. We've also found that if you're over massaging ads, they're not going to be effective anyway. So don't spend that effort. Just keep moving forward with the ads that do work for the client and are on brand enough to be tried online. Once we've made it through the design review, then it'll be exported and everything's ready to go and the ads can ship. So that's for statics, pretty quick process. If it's animated, there might be a couple more phases of we'll review the storyboard in the design phase, and then instead of export, it goes to animation and then animation review and so forth. If it's a more complicated process, there could be likely more steps along the way. Cool. So here's the meat of this presentation. We're going to talk about creating an ad inventory, what it is, why it's important, how copy is king and leads the entire process, how you can be efficient in that ad creation process, and then why we intentionally overproduce when we're creating ads. So an ad inventory or an ad library, you might hear me say either, it's a database of pre-made ad creative that's ready to go. It's a folder of all your ads before you need them, and that's basically it. The reason that we do that is rather than making each request as needed, we'd like to predict what ad creative will be needed based on strategic goals, and then we overproduce similar ads so that there are plenty ready to go should performing ads start to fatigue, or should you start to find winning ads that you'd like to emulate and then hopefully beat. So it's a lot like a cupcake shop where you don't often go into a bakery and ask for a cupcake and then they bake it on the spot. That would take forever. We have places to be. You don't want to wait for that. Then bakeries bake cupcakes a tray at a time, and then they decorate them differently depending on seasonality or the audience coming through the bake shop. So same idea here. We try to create a bunch and then give a variety to satisfy different flavors and different tastes. So copy is king. Copy is the main thing that leads this whole process. It is a trickle effect from the strategy and the copy. The visual headline is the most important part of any ad, no matter which channel that you're putting these ads on. So we focus on that messaging first. The copywriter basically has all the power, and we know that clear messaging sells best. So to break that down a little bit more, when you have strategy in place for copy, it can lead the creative process. The strategy, the call to action, the incentives, the persuasion, all of that happens in the ad copy. And there's two places where copy exists in these ads. It's the visual headline, which is the headline on the ad creative itself. And then the primary copy or the post copy or companion copy, I'm saying the same thing for those three terms. That's the copy next to the ad. And while that does provide a little bit of a boost on performance, it's usually not going to sink your performance or affect it too much. So it's not as important as the visual headline. And then you have the art, which is important too. I'm not crapping on the art. It does a lot as well, but it's kind of like copy takes you to here on performance, and then visual approaches can extend that performance and give you a boost beyond that. So for art, you're getting the clarity, you're getting the voice and tone, you are setting your positioning, and you're trying out your visual identity, your brand identity. It all happens in the visual of the ad. And that usually means a static ad, an animated video or motion graphics, or a footage-based video. Then finally, you have boundaries that exist in the ad type or ad placement. So obviously you want to be as native to different channels as possible and make sure that you're speaking in the correct voice of the channel that you're advertising on. So that can be the boundaries. That can also be the literal boundaries of like size or style of ad, if it's a carousel or if it's a video or if it's static. So that's what I mean by that. Here's how it usually looks. This is an ad placement on Facebook. You've got the primary copy, companion copy up top. You have the visual headline, which is key. You have visual elements, and then you have the subhead CTA that goes around the ad. Interesting thing here, you'll also notice the logo on the ad visual, and I didn't call that out because it is the least important thing there. We've tested across many clients having or not having a logo for the brand on the ad visual. And because the logo is also up top with the brand name and the context of the ad, it really doesn't matter if it's on the visual or not. So cross-channel versus channel-specific creative. I talked a little bit about making ads native to the platform, and that can usually perform better, but can that scale? Do you need to make very different ads for every channel? Yes and no. There's ways to accomplish making that happen without overexerting yourself. A good way to do that is to double up. For example, videos that work on TikTok tend to work on other platforms and have a trickle down effect from there, but not the other way around. So if you create an Instagram stories native ad, it probably won't work on TikTok if you tried it there too. But if you create a TikTok native looking ad, it will often work on Instagram stories and so forth. Also, Square ads, like I mentioned, work across the most platforms nowadays. LinkedIn uses Square now, Facebook does too, as well as others. So that's a really great place to start. And then A/B testing is basically dead. There are some places to use this, especially in product design or in landing page design, but I'm not a fan of A/B testing for performance creative. It is too like granular of changes to really get much of an impact. A good example of this is thinking about your mom or someone that you love. If she is speaking to a crowd of people, it doesn't really matter if she's wearing a red blouse or a blue blouse. It matters what she's saying to those people and what her message was, and that's what people will take away. However, if your mom's wearing like a bathrobe to give a very important speech somewhere professional, then you might not take her as seriously because it's not matching the environment that she's in. So of course you should dress up your ads to look like the environment that they're in and match the energy in that way. And again, as I mentioned, static ads are cheaper and can get you baseline performance data from nearly any channel. So we start there before we move on to more rich media. A part of this process when you're creating ads for performance channels is to expect losers, which sounds kind of interesting, but it's important to know that that will happen. You want to test a lot at once, and it's good to know what's not working. So identify when those ads aren't working, know when to turn them off, make sure they're not leaching spend if they are getting any spend at all, and then learn from those efforts so that you don't do the same thing again and you can try something else. This is different for every client. Some visual approaches that are top performers for specific industries might be losers for other industries. We have a running list of visual approaches and ad types that tend to work, but you never know until you try out the audience and work to test a lot of different things to find what works best. So what do you do with your ad inventory once you have it? We've created all these trays of ads. We have this folder that is really deep with different val props we can test. What do you do with all that? You're not going to be testing 9 ads a week. Maybe you'll test half of those. What happens with the rest of those ads? So the first thing is you're really trying to identify winners, just in the same way you're identifying losers. Losers are easier to find. Winners are a little bit more tough. For a lot of clients, they come to us and they have some stuff in their ad account. Often for most clients, it's an ad that, like, who knows who put it up? Maybe it was the CEO like years ago, but the CEO hates it now. Everyone hates this ad. It's so ugly, but it's top performing. It is getting all their spend and just crushing it. They want it beat. They hate it, but it's bringing in the right people. So, what can we do? So that's an initial ad. If the client doesn't have that, then we can create initial ads for them by going through their website and grabbing the val props that we think are the clearest to their business. And then we'll test those and get some initial learnings there. So starting with those initial learnings, you can then leverage what works from that ad, usually the messaging. You can try messaging options that are similar to those ads and try them in simple designs, and then continue to test that by like going to level 2 on this chart with new visual iterations, trying similar messaging on a new channel or different ad type, and then continuing to build from there. Like level 3, if the messaging is still working, keep trying new visual iterations, keep trying new approaches, and then keep trying new formats. At this point is probably a good time to try video to see if you get any more leverage from there. And then hopefully you've found a new winning king creative that kills the previous Caesar, Et tu Brute. Congrats. And then you start the whole process over again, trying to find something that will knock that new king off. Other times, you might have a king ad that just starts to fatigue over time, as happens with algorithms. So you want to have this process happening before that happens, and always have stuff ready to go. Here's an example of a king ad. This is really simple. It still kind of cracks me up how simple it is, but this is the top performing ad for our client Air. It is also one of, if not the top performing ad for all of our B2B clients. It just says Google Drive and Dropbox aren't built for creative operations, use Air. It is a direct, straight to the point headline, very simple background, happens to have the logo on it. And that's it. It's an analogous color scheme. There's not much to it, but it is effective because we figured out that that visual headline is effective. We've tried other approaches and this one's still winning. But we have a clear idea of what resonates with audience. So it helps keep us on the right path to continue to speak in that language and speak to people in that way. So you don't want to wait until you see positive performance to have creative ready. And that's what I mean by an ad library, is the audience could cool before you strike again. Time is a factor in all of this. Things fatigue, audience change. The landscape changes, news changes, it's common to underestimate as well how long it will take to turn an idea into ads. So when you find winning creative, you don't want to wait for that whole creative process again. You want stuff ready to go. And by overproducing when we do create ads, it gives you a library of approved ad content, and that keeps things running, keeps water in the tubes, keeps things going. In a similar vein, you can also resize ads. So try a story placement of ads that you see are working, try using them on Google Display Network in various sizes, continue to get a longer lifespan from the design. If you do start to see an ad fatigue as a square, maybe the other sizes can give it a little bit more longevity and lifespan to the ad. This also is a great way to start building integrated marketing communication plays, which is one of the best ways to really hammer in an idea to your audience of what you'd like to get them to do or accomplish. So that's really what we're seeking to do here. And then finally, what you can also do with iterative testing and an ad inventory is you can involve your brand. I come from a visual identity and branding background. I've helped a lot of companies to evolve their brands or rebrand entirely or to create new brands. And I ended up moving from that to performance creative because I liked the tangible results from the performance creative channels. And I liked that there was actual statistics and feedback that you could get from these channels. And that applies to visual identities and brand decisions as well. So if you have a brand team that's experimenting with new visual identity decisions, this is a great way to test it. That can be as easy as taking a previously performing top ad and just changing the color scheme to your new brand colors, or swapping new illustrations in or new photo styles, that sort of thing. Here's an example of that. Ramp is really good at keying into trends and color and texture. And so they came to us with a new color palette. We updated it from this more pale yellow and kind of more subdued color palette, more plain on the left that you see. And then they also brought us new textures. You might not be able to see it, but that black bar in B1, there's a bit of a cotton texture behind the card there. It's really luxurious and helps make the corporate card, seem more high-end, which it is. And then they found that this more vibrant kind of day glow yellow-green worked really well, and they were early to adopt that color. You might have seen that color get really popular this year. Beyonce had the whole music video at the Oscars in that color, and they realized that it worked well for them too. So that's basically it. I would love to answer some questions. I'll do a quick recap first, and I hope this was really informative. My main takeaway that I'd like you to get from this presentation is that ad inventory is fuel for creative decision-making. It's a flywheel to power choices for brand, for audience, for seasonality, for trends, and you should think ahead and make as many ads as you can before you need them to test all of those things that you would like to test. So with that, I'll open up the floor for questions, and we can chat about everything I just went over.
Thank you so much, Alexander. I know I'm speaking on behalf of everyone when I say I learned so much about building on an ad inventory from this presentation, and I have a lot of questions for you offline. But for now, let's get to some questions from our audience. First up from Diana, she asks, if we shouldn't A/B test for performance creative, then how should we go about testing messaging or creative options to determine which one is more effective? How should these tests be structured?
Yeah, so like you should still definitely test different visual headlines. It just doesn't have to be a split A/B test. And by that, I mean, I've seen clients try to test like, is orange better than blue? And they have the same ad and they just change one aspect at a time. And that's not really going to get you as much learning as it would if you try multiple visual headlines that are a similar val prop but worded differently, or you try the same visual headline with different visual approaches. So there's still definitely testing. You're still going to do split testing. Just don't do it in such a like split hair kind of way and expect to have really great learnings from that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next from Kira, she asks, how do you balance building a creative library to pull from and incorporating uncovered insights into assets as you learn more about what's working?
Yeah, that is different for each client. So some clients will create a tray with us every week. And so we're constantly filling their library with new stuff that they can test. Other clients will come to us for a tray, they'll go test it, and then they'll come back, in 2 weeks or a month later. So it really just depends on how big your spend is and how much you're planning to test. You don't have to overdo it. You don't have to create, 50 ads ahead of time if you don't have the spend to match that. But you should still have more than you need so that you're not asking for stuff after you already need it.
Stephanie asks, how do you educate clients who are very strict on brand guidelines and are inflexible when testing different visuals?
This is such a good question. Thank you so much for asking that. That was actually something I meant to cover, and I'm glad you brought it up. So the performance channels are really great in that you can test things quickly, of course, as I've gone over. But we also know what succeeds in these channels is often pretty far off brand, sometimes crappier, if I'm being honest. People in these channels like stuff in their feed that looks like it belongs in their feed. It looks like it came from their friends, or the messaging is really clear. And so that can be tough with some clients who want stuff to be as perfect and pristine and on brand as possible. I do my best to educate them by showing what works for other clients, by showing that, very simple ads are effective and that you don't have to overbake or over design these for these to work. So that's part of it. But the good thing, and what I tell clients about these channels, is that if something's not working, even if it is off brand, we can always turn it off. You decide what audience is going to see it. So it's not like if you put something out there that's far off brand, it's really going to sink your entire brand, because you're only showing it to the types of audiences that you want to show it to.
Thanks, Alexander. Dan asks, have you seen a performance difference between static versus creative with some motion design? Example, that same set of static ads, but with some motion.
Yeah. So we call those GIF style ads. We have clients ask for that all the time, and it's something that we offer. It can give an increased boost. Usually if something's going to work, it's going to work as a static, and then when you add some motion to it, you'll get an increased boost beyond it. But if you start with a video and you have a val prop or a visual headline that doesn't resonate with the audience, then it's not going to work at all, and you've wasted the effort on the video in that way. So yes, you totally can. It's also client dependent and industry dependent. So direct to consumer usually does a lot better with video. And it depends on the channels you're going on too. TikTok and Instagram stories, of course, do better with video. But for B2B clients that are SaaS-based, especially software as a service, then video might not always be the best. It might just be best to show your val props, because people don't often like to just watch people use software. There's always exceptions. It totally depends on the industry, and that's part of this whole testing process, is figuring out what works for your client.
And that's why we have performance creative experts like you to help out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Next, we have a question from Dan. How do you capture what you're learning from the tests and apply it to new iterations, and then bring the learnings back to the brand?
That's a good one too. So I have other teams that I work with here at Right Side Up. For B2B clients, we have Right% as a department, and they help to create a connection between the different channels and then bring it over into a spreadsheet for me to show me what sort of, different metrics that they're working against, whether it's click-through rate or acquisition. It depends on what the clients have set up, if they're able to monitor their complete acquisition numbers, or if they're just going on click-through or cost of ads. So in that way, it is a little bit client dependent, and it really depends on what's set up. But that's something that we work hard to do, is to work with the performance marketers to get those insights, discuss the learnings, discuss that with the copywriter, and then continue to use those learnings to move forward.
Thank you so much. Alyssa asks, the UGC style you mentioned is really interesting. For an early startup without a permissions or legal team, but with excited power users who would probably be happy to share testimonials, are there any watch outs or things to consider when moving that content from organic to paid social channels? She also says, thank you for this webinar. Awesome.
Oh, well, thank you for watching. I appreciate you being here. So that goes a little bit outside of my realm. We have another department here for affiliate marketing, and they can help manage influencers to deal with that exactly. But when you're moving stuff from organic to paid, you definitely have to make sure that you're legally covered. It's okay if you don't have a legal team, but you should have some sort of agreement, or at least pay those people in some way, because they're creating content for you for ads. So you don't want them to come back and make you remove the ad because you didn't pay for them or didn't cover it in the right way. Usually testimonials as text are okay, especially if they provide them through a channel like I'm totally blanking on the names. Trustpilot, there's one. If they provide it through one of those sites or something, usually it's okay to use it in your ads because it's a part of the terms of those websites. So that might be a good option. But if you can get a legal team to help, I would recommend it just to make sure that you're, covered.
Covering all your bases.
Yeah.
Dan has another question. How
Okay.
on the nose should visual headlines be when it comes to funneling the right audience? Example, should a DevOps company headline literally say something along the lines of, hey, full stack developers?
Yes. We found that being really clear and to the point of who you're talking to is effective, especially with B2B. You can try it with direct to consumer too, but especially with B2B. Yeah, if you're trying to talk to those people, then say it outright. You might want to test a few different options. For example, we found that liquor store owners works really well for liquor stores, for DoorDash offering delivery for those stores, rather than just saying like liquor store managers or liquor shop workers or anything like that. Even if it's not exactly the same title as who you want to talk to, it might still work. So find that sweet spot of a title that's a little broad, but is really clear of who you'd like to be speaking with.
Thank you. Emily asks, are you looking for consultants to join your network? And if
Absolutely.
so, what skills are you looking for these consultants?
Yeah, so I'm always interviewing new people. It really depends on what clients we have come in. I interview a lot of people and I tell them, don't worry if you don't hear from me for a long time, because it's really important we match the right people to the right client. What I'm looking for when I'm looking at portfolios is their experience, what they specialize in, what they do really well, what they like to work on, how they manage burnout as creators, and then a few other things. But if you are a designer or creator and you'd like to get into this type of work and you have specific industries you'd like to work on, show that work in your portfolio. If you have work in your portfolio for industries you don't want to continue to work on, whether it's food or fintech or pharmaceutical or whatever, don't put it in your portfolio. So then I won't assume that that's what you want to do. So really set yourself up to be, for lack of a better word, typecasted to the type of work that you'd like to work on.
Amazing. And if they are interested in showing a portfolio, are they better emailing you or talent@rightsideup.co?
They can do either. They can use this email address here, creative@rightsideup.co, or they can send to talent. I believe their email is talent@rightsideup.co as well.
I believe so.
Cool.
Awesome. We have one more question from Jason. He asks, how do you align with a company's brand and creating ads?
So the first thing we do when we're creating initial ads, and it takes us a little longer than usual for the initial set of ads, is we grab everything we can from their brand guidelines, from their website. A lot of startups come to us with nothing. They're like, hey, yeah, here's our visual identity. Here's our logo. Our logo is going to be changing in 2 months, so don't use it. And we kind of don't like our colors, so, figure it out. And that can be tough, but we can work with it. Just from years of experience that I have and that my contractors have, we know how to look through their work, through their previous ad libraries, through their previous communications, and grab those assets, bring them into Figma. We collect it all in one place, and then any contractors who work on the account can see it all together and then, drag it into the ads. So in that way, it's really just a lot of research and exploration to make sure that we are on brand as much as possible. And then we also apply other approaches that we know work across different industries and try to make that as close to their visual identity as possible.
Thank you so much, Alexander. Those are all of our questions. If you have another, if you want to quickly leave it in the Q&A functionality. I don't see any coming in, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. Alexander, thank you so much for your time hosting, and to everyone who attended, we really appreciate you hopping in. Again, we'll be sending out a follow-up email, so you'll have the whole recording, the slide deck, all the resources you need to continue learning about this. And please feel free to reach out to us if you would like to talk about your paid social strategy in more detail or have any outstanding questions from this session. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.